Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Norville Barron. I'm the VP of Communications to the National Black MBA Association, Metro New York chapter. Want to welcome you to our weekly digital series where we're going to be focusing on conversations with leaders. This is going to be a wonderful opportunity to learn about diversity and fitness. And with that, I will turn it over to Alicia Suggs, our Director of University Relations and Alumni Programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Norville, and welcome everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Lunchbox series. I just want to also mention that the National Black MBA Association is celebrating, I'm so excited to say that they're celebrating their 50th year anniversary. And we as a chapter have so many programs and content in store for you for the upcoming weeks. Just to let everyone know, if you have any questions, please enter them in the chat box. And also please just to remind you guys to keep your phones on mute so that we have less distraction as we step through the conversation. So I'm very excited today. We have Jodi Brockington here. She is the Director of Diversity and Inclusion Sourcing at the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation. We are going to talk about the career journey of Jodi Brockington, as well as understand how to have a healthy lifestyle as well as a healthy career. And before we get started, I want to just talk about Jodi and give you a little background on her. So Jodi Brockington is a master connector. She is an experienced consultant who has represented, coached, and advised thousands of leaders, entrepreneurs, and professionals, helping them launch, manage, and develop their business. Her management consulting background and strong analytical skills have placed her at the forefront of defining strategies and innovative solutions for nonprofit organizations and Fortune 500 companies in enhancing their diversity and inclusion and corporate social responsibility practices. As an entrepreneur, she has guided nonprofits, companies, and business leaders to acquire financial and human capital to improve their bottom line. In addition, Jodi is responsible for developing a pipeline of diverse talent and acquire the most qualified candidates as a Director of Diversity Inclusion Sourcing for the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation, also known as DTCC, which is a premier post-trade market infrastructure for the global financial services industry. From operating facilities and data centers around the world, DTCC automates, centralizes, and standardizes the processing of financial transactions across the trade lifecycle and mitigates risk for thousands of institutions worldwide. Previously, Jodi was the Director of Fund Development and Corporate Relations for the New York Urban League and the founding President of New York Urban League Young Professionals. Since 2012, Jodi Brockington has produced and hosted the National Urban League Jobs Network's Digital Career Success Series. Jodi is one of New York's top lifestyle coaches and fitness experts. She owns Niara Consulting, a full-service company that provides complete consulting services for individuals, nonprofits, small businesses, and corporations. She's a graduate of the University of California with a bachelor's degree in sociology and psychology. She has an MPA in public administration from Baruch College and an MSW from the University of Southern California. So with that said, welcome, Jodi. Hi, Jodi. How are you?
I'm great.
Thank you for joining today. I'm very excited about our discussion.
When I hear about myself and there's even stuff missing on that, I realize I feel like I've been around for a very long time. So,
so let's just.
And I want to and I want to know who that person is. Like, is that me? So, thank you for having me.
Thank you. No, thank you for joining us. So as you know, after college or graduate school, it's not a linear path to the top. There's going to be peaks and valleys. Tell me about the career journey of Jodi Brockington and how you got to where you are today.
Definitely very weird patterns, but for sure, I went straight from undergrad to grad school, sociology degree. What are you going to really do with that? My parents weren't sure. I definitely wasn't sure. The only thing I was sure about is that I had a few more years that they would pay for college. So I actually applied for a dual degree, JD, MSW, but law school was not my cup of tea at USC at the time. I was really trying to save the world, so it was a little bit more civil rights, and more people at USC were about entertainment law. So it just wasn't a great mix, but I kept with the MSW. And I did a macro program, Community Organization Planning Administration, which is what really led me into the nonprofit arena, arming me with fundraising, development skills, programmatic skills, you know, what does a program need to be better? You know, how can this after school program be better? Is it because we add food? Is it because we add a fitness component? Is it the time? Is it the location? What? And so that's what gave me tools. But in that journey, I was actually in school during the time of the earthquake in Los Angeles. So similar to what we're going through now, life kind of stopped. The 10 freeway came down.
Wow.
So we were not going to classes, which I enjoyed. But at the same time, trying to also getting an MSW, becoming social workers in the term, some people directly, myself more on the macro, trying to figure out how are we going to solve problems then, right? And so it led me to career. I turned my internship, actually, while I was getting my MSW, into my first job. I wrote a $750,000 grant with a bunch of different consultants that was funded for actually violence prevention in Los Angeles, right then in South Central. It was at the high times. I definitely saw enough bullets pass my face, hit the ground, some drive-bys, very interesting times. If you've seen, a few movies of that era, late 80s, early 90s, it's real. But I knew that the one-on-one kind of social work was not my calling. So I turned into thought of myself as a grant writer, right? You help write a $750,000 grant, which you didn't do by yourself, but you think you did in your 20s. So I turned that and catapulted that into a career in nonprofit. And at the time, there was a really great group called the New Leaders that the mayor at the time had coming out of his office, which was filled with young Black professional leaders who then made it their own organization. I became the youngest board member for that group, and then was snapped up from the president, the co-founders from that, to actually work for Operation Hope. So what I mean is I never really planned to do a lot of stuff, and I'm sure a lot of you who are listening today have ended up in careers and choices kind of haphazardly, but being prepared. But I was perceived as someone who got stuff done, right? So it's about producing, other people seeing you, what you could do. And that kind of led me to a career in that, which led me to a career of still doing fundraising, but I wanted to have a female boss. So I took a chance to work for California School of Professional Psychology with Lisa Porcher Burke. But literally, I'd say about 3 weeks after I arrived, she took a job in Africa, and I clearly was not going with her. Not clearly to me, but meaning that she had this path and did not have a role for me. And then I was scooped up into the political world to work for a state assemblyman as his chief of staff and also fundraiser. So in the office, I was his chief of staff, but I also did fundraising for his campaign while his actual chief of staff was running for his assembly seat while he was running for senator. So a lot of going on. So like things kind of flowed part from relationships, my network, and then my net worth of the things that I had accomplished that people had seen.
So let me ask you this. During your times of transitions, did you have mentors to help you piece together your career as it went along?
Well, I think I always had my mother. I think that's the big mentor of all M's. I think we can all, whether male, female, I think moms are really the first mentor we get. Forget the first love, forget the first woman in your life, just everything. But also as being a woman who who is and now retired, but was very accomplished, a bra burner, someone who wasn't going to take a lot of slack. So she was always that person for me, like, oh, what about women issues? But then I think along the way, people who saw me as talented, right? You kind of, people end up leading themselves towards people who have star quality, right? You're not going to go for the person who's, they're doing okay, that everyone else is talking to. So I think people kind of just took me under their arm. I don't know if it was formalized, like this is my mentor and someone was given to me, like sometimes they do in some corporate settings and even in some nonprofit and other business settings. But I think there was definitely mentoring. I mean, no one does anything alone. But I think in the early stages of my career, I think what was more important was my peer-to-peer mentoring. Like, I think one, you kind of watch like, ooh, what is my friend doing? Where are they? Oh, they got a VP gig. Like, and for me, the struggle was always like, no one knew really, including myself, like what I was really doing. Like you're talking about that linear, like, oh, you're trying to be a CEO of a company, that makes sense. You're trying to be a lawyer, that makes sense. You're trying to be like, there's things in our society that make sense. this whole fundraising, nonprofit, development, corporate relations, all the weird titles I've had, I always had to invite my family to something. And they're like, oh, you know Magic Johnson. Oh, you've met so and so. Like, then it was like, they still didn't know what I did, but they're like, well, she's with people that other people know, so she's okay, right? So I think it's some of that, but I think mentors you can kind of choose on your own, and they don't have to be a real relationship. It could be someone you see on TV. I mean, I think a lot of us, including me, think of Oprah as one of my mentors, although she's never, I've met her a couple of times in passing and at events and when clients of mine have worked with her. But then there's the people you know that are doing things a little bit ahead of you, which I mean about peers. And then there's those icons in industries that you're trying to be like. So whether or not you actually meet them and they become your mentor or have, you know, made something formal, I think you can always take things away from those. And so the short answer is yes, lots of mentors. I don't think I'd be anywhere without them. And then some became more formal. And eventually I became bold enough to ask people like, I need you to mentor me in this, like very specific things.
Right.
And there was no one thing alike. Some people test you out, right? Because if I'm asking, they're like, that's like dating, right? Like, I'm telling you that you need to mentor me. And they're like, well, why? Well, you do this and you're this great fundraiser and you have such a great following and like whatever it is, you've written books. I want to write a book. So how do I do that? Right. So you need people to give you steps and people to watch. And I always chose people, and even more so now, who have failed and then have or recalculated or redid who they are, reinvented themselves, found a niche in something that was so big that you needed a smaller piece to actually be successful. And then people who seem to be a little bit more crazy like me, who just kind of bounce around. And I definitely got that from my mother, who definitely was writing, you know, cue cards for Saturday Night Live, working for a publicist, teaching, you know, English at Baruch College, while I was sitting in the back of the room at 6, right? And sleep when she did other things. So I think mentoring is part of what you watch, part of what you have access to, and then the things that you don't have access to or don't know how to get access to, that you want that person who's in that space.
Got it. So as you know, when you graduate from graduate school, typically, you know, postgraduates think they're going to jump into their career and just take off. But some of them don't realize you still got to work your way up. Tell me about, you know, some of your experiences where you experienced something similar to that. And what type of advice would you give MBA candidates or postgraduates when they're just getting started in the industry or in the industry for their career?
Okay, well, one thing I do pride myself is I am a Black MBA Metro, you know, chapter member. And probably before some of you were members, or maybe during your membership, I was one who joined who does not have an MBA, but I do have 3 masters. So I think with that, you add ego, you add a chip on your shoulder, like I'm, you know, you're like, you know, I'm everything. So you think that you could just walk into any job and because of your MBA, every door is going to open, and you know, and not even the MBA, just because it's you. You know you're smart, you know you're talented, you know what you have to offer. But the problem is that you still need to prove yourself. So unless you're doing an executive MBA and you're already in the workplace and then people see the shift in you and they see the extra skills you have to come with it. And I think often, you know, we think we're going to get this job up here. I mean, I was turning down jobs left and right. After I got my MSW, I worked for some years and I became a National Urban Fellow, which is where I got my MPA from Baruch. And I left that job after we graduated. I went to Spain and trying to learn Spanish, which still unsuccessful till this day. So I just want you to know it's my struggle. But I think what happened was I was getting all these job offers when I came back, but they were offering me even less money than I was making as a consultant for the assemblyman. And they weren't offering me something that was exciting as that. And I was like, I don't need that. Found myself on my dad's couch. Like I had moved home for the internship because it was here in New York. But I stayed here. I didn't move back to California like I planned. I was planning to get married. Still didn't happen. Still hasn't happened. You know, put that out there. But just the idea of plans are not always, don't always go as you think. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to have this second master's. Everybody's going to want me. And then because of the ego, I think I walked out of roles. I was offered a job at my internship, but I knew city government jobs, city jobs were not my space. I did well there. It was a 6-figure job, but I feel like it was just not the right place for me. And I could have just taken that job, and I know everyone would have been like, "Woo, you're doing well," but I would have been depressed. So I was not depressed on my father's couch. We had a housekeeper and food, and everything was rosy until one day he's like, "So you're going to get a job?" And I was like, "A job?" So then I became a national, New York City teaching fellow, which led me to my career in teaching. Once again, bad time to go into teaching. It was right before the whole 9/11. Teaching, one morning, and suddenly they're like, we need everyone in the auditorium, right? So here's another career that I started. I got another degree from it. I did not stick through the whole teaching thing. Unfortunately, my mom had a health scare. And so teaching is not a job that you can kind of do and kind of go to the office and kind of work at. So I took a leave, and then I did not return to teaching, but I did finish my master's in education. So that's also, life takes place. So when when you first have your degree, find a place where there's some work. Like, you're going to bring what you bring, but you want to go to a place where you can stretch yourself, where you're going to get some skills and something that's going to be transferable. Because in your mind right now, when you leave, you're an MBA in marketing, and you go to some marketing department, and it's not so shiny as the IT department, or as another, the business development department, where there's still a lot of marketing. Or so just to be more open, and to not think that you're just going to make this money right away. You're still going to have to pay some dues. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how much more accomplished you are than someone else, because you can't, once you start comparing yourself as well, what you need to just talk about you. What have you done? So that's also something people look at a lot. And now about collaboration, cross-pollinating within your company. Externally, what do people say about you? Third party. So you really need to come into a job with a lot, but you also, the other fault that I see definitely as on the hiring side is not enough people think about what do they want in a year or two out of this job. Like, what are you going to leave with if you left or they let you go? So. Okay,
I just have 2 questions.
Sure.
The first question is, how do you ask that big question to a prospective mentor?
I think it depends on your relationship or what they know of you already. I mean, a cold ask is just like a cold call, right? So if it's a cold call and you don't really know this person, and it's someone that you've been watching, or there's some kind of icon in your industry, it's really all about them. It's all about the ego, just like if you were in the elevator with the CEO of your company, and who better than to mentor you, right? But if you don't know that he just went to China and he has 3 kids, or she's doing this, it's about them. And so whatever you know about them that can connect you, like, did you go to the same school? Maybe you and the CEO have a child in the same elementary school. Like, it's more about personal stuff, but knowing about them, and you are the last piece. If it's an internal thing where it's a CEO and you work at the company, or someone higher up, a managing director, you have access, which is great, to all the emails, right? So it's not like you just saw them in the elevator, you told them, oh, I've been working, you told them all about themselves in your 5 flights, about themselves, what they've been doing, what a great job they've done. You've even talked about something they're doing for corporate social responsibility. That is your great opportunity at that point to follow up with an email. Great seeing you on the elevator. As you know, I'm in Bob's department. We're working on this for you. And then build it a little bit before the ask, right? You can't just ask. You got to build you got to build a relationship to ask for something. But don't ask until you've offered something. So with whatever your project is, or whatever you are as an entrepreneur that you're doing, that you might want someone's help with, you want to, offer them, like, oh, can I do, is there a spreadsheet I can do for you? Is there if my space is social media, are you following them on that? Can you do something, like, offer something before you ask for something?
Got it.
You know, and then kind of keep in touch, you know,
Got
kind of watch them. That's definitely, like, I do a whole training on strategic stalking.
Okay.
It's like networking on steroids.
Well, thank you, Beverly, for that question. The next question comes from Stephanie. What is your take on how COVID-19 has reshaped opportunities, and what does the new normal opportunity landscape look like to you?
Well, I can say, luckily, I decided to I can't say you never leave being an entrepreneur, but left entrepreneurship to now be at DTCC in-house, doing what I love, which is diversity and inclusion, specifically sourcing now, but it still has strategy, there's corporate social responsibility, there's training, there's a bunch of pieces that go along with it. But DTCC, our job is really securing all of the money that flows on the stock exchange worldwide, right? So we're about being more volatile, a little bit more flexible, more stable than other companies. We are the backbone of all financial services. So think of us if, you know, you guys, we all pass money via Venmo, or we pay stuff electronically, but we don't see it. We just hope it gets to the bank, right? So banks rely on us to make sure that those transactions that have happened all day, which are millions of them, are actually happening and the money goes where it is, right? And look at what's going on now. So I think with COVID-19 across all industries, everyone is trying to figure out what's next. I can speak very strongly about DTCC that for us, we thrive in this volatile times because this is where we do our best. So we have not stopped hiring. We are at about 97% work from home, remote. The few folks that are actually in our office actually have to do manual trading and look at stuff, real data that they need to see with their eyeballs more so than being there, you know, looking at it electronically. And then some of our staff has been selected by department to go to some of our offices to collect, you know, mail and things that people need to see as well. So I think it is a time that I know lots of people have lost jobs. A lot of people are nervous. Those of you who are about to graduate, you're like, oh my God, what kind of company? I mean, you know, I'm going to always give my company a plug. However, look at what you really want to do. I mean, it's what I mean, you know, you want to be passionate about where your paycheck comes from because you do it all the time. Like I eat, drink, and breathe diversity. Whether or not it's the hiring part for me, I'm like in my lane because I'm like, my job is to really get everybody a job and I can do that. So we have at least about an average about 100 jobs per month that we are looking at.
What would you say is a good candidate for DTCC?
A great candidate is an Excel spreadsheet guru, period. Someone who's not afraid of numbers, someone who can manipulate data, translate data to a 3-year-old, but talk to some subject matter expert. And it's the idea that you can really thrive here. I mean, we have every job that any other company would have, right? Executive assistants, we have marketing, we have, you know, HR, etc. But we really thrive in the space of technology. So we're fintech, which makes us really, we're more about 20% finance, 80% tech, 25, 75. So it's the idea that we do want people who have a financial background. So if you're an MBA with finance, but we're not looking for financial advisors. We are looking for cybersecurity, AI, IT, the idea of artificial intelligence. We want project coordinators, program coordinators, product managers, and also product developers. So anything you could kind of do at a Facebook and a Google that looks all shiny, we are creating those same things, but a lot of our stuff is brand new. Where at a lot of these other companies, you are kind of just creating the 2.0 and the 3.0. So we have some of that, but it's all about finance. So money has to be kind of exciting to you. Numbers have to be exciting. We also have a great space in compliance and risk, which is really looking at, you know, what risks are we taking by doing this? The cybersecurity piece is really, you know, every day someone's trying to get to that money that's traveling electronically, right? So it's protecting that, just like we look at the crazy emails. And even now, because of COVID, we are all looking at emails more, so there's more of a chance to get those ones that kind of corrupt your computer, kind of look into your data. So we are constantly doing that. So there is no best candidate. I think it's someone who's more agile, flexible, and we definitely look for people who are like rolling up their sleeves. Like, this is not just like the cushy, get the little job. I mean, everyone here works hard. We want people with a grit. And I think most companies do, but we definitely check people's ego at the door. We get a lot of people who apply who are great, but they're great. And this is, you know, we should hire them. And I'm like, well, there's a lot of people applying for the same job. So why you? And you should really know a lot about this industry. That's the problem I see too, is that people just don't know enough about us, because we were a company that was not well known, because we were the backbone and behind all the banks. And in the beginning, you know, we do have regulatory stuff. So folks that are also well versed in FINRA, SEC, all of the policies and a lot of the laws around these things are also very important to manage people and manage money.
Got it. We have a question in the chat from Kavern. Will the diversity agenda be pushed back or accelerated during this COVID-19 pandemic?
Ooh, I think it's definitely accelerating. One, lots of headhunters and other people have been reaching out to D&I folks who are already in the biz. You'll see a lot of, even in jobs in that area. So if that's an interest, but for us, for sure, we have the Diversity, Talent Management and Advancement Department that I'm a part of at DTCC, that was created by our CEO, Mike Bodson, has actually become part of the backbone of this time of keeping all of our employees connected, because we're not just in the US. So in the US, our main offices are Jersey City, Tampa, Florida, Dallas, and Boston. And when COVID started, we closed the Jersey City office first, because most of us take public transportation. And then slowly, I mean, not that it was slow, it was pretty quick, but then the other ones kind of like domino effect, because you were in your own space. But we also have employees that have been faced with this sooner in Singapore, Chennai, UK, etc. So, and so you kind of watch that to see what's going on. But now we do stuff called like Meetup Mondays, where anyone in our company for about a half hour can check in on Zoom. We usually have on average about 100-ish folks that are checking in, and you know, it's kind of a, you know, a support system. You know, oh, my kids are driving me crazy, this homeschooling's going on, what am I going to do about my barking dog? But also a place where we are giving them tools of, you know, some tactics and things they can do. We're doing stuff with corporate social responsibility is also in the DTMA department. And we've been doing contests, you know, best pet picture, just so we can get to know each other a little bit more. Stuff seems corny. We're doing Earth Day because we do care about the environment. We increase the giving that our employees can do for COVID specific charities. So we usually get $500 matching for any charity of choice. They've now added another $200,000 for anyone in our company to do a matching to any of the COVID facing, so food banks and any care, any programs. So I think you're only going to see it increase, because what's happening with COVID, as you know, there's disparities that were already clear, especially of Black and brown communities and women, health issues, who's dying from the disease, unemployment rates, the workforce, all of that has impacted communities of color and those who were already kind of disenfranchised or kind of diverse, right? So people need to understand those populations better. And I feel like more companies are going to be reliant on that. But luckily, we've been doing so much already, a lot of trainings. We have stuff in place in our company, mentoring, as you were talking about, mentor circles that are global, mentor circles that are at certain levels, because different, you know, managers need different things, and someone who's earlier in their career, the executive directors, women groups that we have as well. And then all of our employee resource groups, our ERGs, they are the ones who host those Meetup Mondays. Nice. So we're infusing it even more. So I'm really proud of the work we're doing. It's just a lot. So I feel like I'm working twice as hard as before.
Great. So I just want to stop here really quick. If anybody has any questions, please feel free, just to remind you guys, enter it in the chat. I'll definitely be checking it periodically as we step through the conversation, so I can answer some of your questions real time. So more on DTC. Tell me a little bit about the culture, because you know the financial services industry has been heavily dominated by men. What steps have you taken to infuse more diversity at your organization?
Well, I mean, that's part of what drew me to come to DTCC, besides, once again, utilizing and leveraging someone in my network. One of my original New York Urban League young professionals became the head of global diversity hiring at Merrill. So that's how I got my job there. And then multiple years later, during the other recession, the one we're in now, prior to this one, he came to DTCC, and this is how I ended up there, right? So I think culture-wise, there's a lot of folks from finance. Like I said, financial backgrounds do pay. So there's a Merrill alumni for sure. There's a EY alumni, a so-and-so, you know, a Mellon, a JP, you know, Morgan Chase folks. But it's a very nice place to work. Like, my friends kept checking on me. They're like, are you okay there? Like, I know you just started and you've been working for yourself for like 15 plus years. Like, is this okay? But everyone's trying to help you. You know, they see you stressed out. I couldn't, you know, I don't know, reconcile one of my bills on our system, and this woman came over and helped. Like, it's like a very caring community. I think because I joke that we're tiny but mighty, which is what I got from someone when I first got there, and I use it now, where we're only 4,700 employees total. It was 4,600 when I got there, so we are growing, but we're too small to have issues. And that's what I was talking about, having the grit and rolling up your sleeves, and nobody's better than anyone else. I think we also have a misconception. Even today, I'm nicely dressed. Not that I don't dress ever, but we are also casual, you know, corporate casual. So even our CEO will wear his jeans and a sweater, or jeans and a button shirt and a polo. You know, this, from the C-suite to those, except for our security, is always on the 9. But I feel like it's a great place to work, that you're comfortable, people are there to help you, and they want you to succeed. So the other part of the culture is we definitely do a great job, which also hurts my work, of moving people internally. So promoting people within. But when you brought up the issue about gender disparities and equities, definitely we are challenged in terms of numbers. It's not that our overall numbers of men to women are so far apart, and I do not have that exact stat, but definitely at the higher parts of the house, and in certain areas of technology where you don't see many women in general, not just across fintech industry, in finance, and then just technology. So when you combine the two, it's definitely a challenge. But that's why we have 2 programs in place: Emerging Women Leaders and AWL, which is, you know, so those are associate directors who are trying to move into directors, and then directors trying to move into executive directors, to give them some extra push. Also do a little bit more personalized and formal mentoring for them, and then some skill-based stuff, and then exposure. Because I think what happens, and what's great about DTCC being small, is you can quickly know everybody. You know, everyone, I was only there a couple months, they're like, oh, you're that Jodi. And I'm like, is that a good Jodi? Or what kind of Jodi is that? So I think it's that kind of place. Even now with the COVID-19, people are spread out, and I have to actually pivot how I do work. I'm used to working out in the community. I'm used to like this not being virtual, and I get to speak to all of you and meet you. And when I meet you, I'm like, oh my God, I have a role for you. And like, that's how I do my kind of recruiting and my thought process. Or I'd be like, Alicia, I met Bob, and you know, can you connect me to him, because he was talking about, he did all this IT stuff, and we're looking. So now I have to really think about all the tools that actual talent advisors and recruiters use. Like, do I have to use LinkedIn? Like, that's what I check after I've met you, right? It's not my first go-to, but now does it have to be? How many more virtual events might I have to do so I can keep my brand out there and keep DTCC out there? You know, so it's doing business differently, but they're willing to do that. They also knew that a lot of people like myself, I left one day thinking I'd be back to get the rest of my things, but I have not been back to my office since March 12th. And so they did allow us to supply ourselves with another monitor, because we're used to having 2 monitors, a keyboard. You know, I just left with my laptop, my work laptop, and that was it.
Wow.
You know, so in that sense, they knew that people were going to need things and we're not ready to work from home. And now they realize how long it's going to be. So it's that kind of company that does care. They're not going to give you the world and I couldn't buy any monitor. This was the budget. You can find this on Amazon. You know, they're very clear. They're like, no, no, no. You know, similar to Walmart, where, you know, you're trying to find the best for the best price. But they do care. They want you to be okay with that. And they also now know that it's going to be a longer haul for all of this to go. So I think it's just a great place to work. And, you know, I joke that people retire from DTCC. They usually have a long-term relationship. There's definitely roles that don't change. Like you can come in at 9 and leave at 5, and you're going to do the same kind of data stuff. Some people thrive in that space. Then there's those who are driven, who want to move around and do things, and they try to make sure that you have that opportunity as well.
Great. So we do have a question in the chat, and this will help us roll into our next segment. Do you think that fitness has played a role in well-being during this time? With working hours extending beyond 9 to 5, are there any recommendations on creating a balance?
You know, that's that same kind of work-life balance stuff. I don't know if there's no one answer. I think you need to find what works for you. You know, my shameless plug of doing my workout Wednesdays, also with the New York Metro chapter. But I feel like everyone has their thing. So I was used to going to the gym at least 5 times a week. There's no gym now. So I now rely on teaching 2 classes, of which I had one 6:30 this morning, and I'll teach one tonight at 6 p.m. Hint, hint, anyone who wants to join me. Norval will make sure you get the information. But I'm now following some of the instructors I like from my gym, and finding other ways to do that. But I also am a personal trainer and group fitness instructor, so I also know what I need. Yoga, stretching. It's not about doing a PX, 90 PX and Tabata and killing yourself all the time. But it's doing things that make sense to you. So, even with my class, it's for all levels. And it's the idea that I might be kicking my leg all the way up to here and you get your foot barely off the ground, but you're listening to music, you're doing something for an hour that has nothing to do with work, that has nothing to do with kids if you have kids, has nothing to do with your dog or cat or anything else, but for yourself. I think that's the most healthy thing, is finding some time for yourself. Those of you who are married or are separated from, the person in your life because they're in another city, or your family is far away. It's also some of the health part is connecting, but my biggest thing is sleep. And I struggle with sleep before this. And now, because it's so quiet, any noise is like, whoa, what's going on? So trying to come up with a routine is the most important, and then finding what is important for you and your body, physically, emotionally, and mentally, because there's things that are happening. A coworker kind of does something that you're not so happy about. It's harder to get to them now, right? And you don't want it to be, it's a first world problem. Oh, I didn't get the report, or this didn't happen, right? But it's the idea, or you're homeschooling and how are you balancing these things? So you have to come up with what works for you and then try to fit other people in. It's that whole thing that they used to say when we took flights, right? Put the mask on yourself first. Because if you don't take care of yourself and you are responsible for others, that's going to be impossible. Right. So really think about yourself first, like, I keep hearing, oh, my wife took my home office, my husband took my home, my kids are doing homeschool. But if you need that office the most, and that's what's going to keep you sane, you might need to, recalculate some of that stuff. And for the fitness piece, the other part of that is really, I keep saying keep social distancing from your refrigerator. And it's not the refrigerator so much. It's the idea of, there's some mindless eating, there's some time that's downtime for those of you who currently aren't working, or you're about to finish school and school's done in 2 weeks. You just have some idle time. So just be mindful of what you're eating, not to not eat. I think that's the biggest thing that people, because you're home, like a couple of days, I'm like, hey, I'm going to be eating during this meeting because I have not eaten yet today. And you don't want me to be hangry, right? I will be that person. So we actually tend to gain more weight from when we don't eat enough, not from overeating, because at least then your body knows that you care for it and will get rid of things versus holding on to them. So just remember that. And when you're anxious or have stress, you will also hold on to things. So that's why some meditation, some stretching, just going on a walk, music on, mellow music, can shift your whole day. A quick nap, if you can get one in, just some downtime, and then really trying to get to bed is important. And it's really the routine. Like, it's all the stuff that we were taught when we were little: get up, make your bed, like you've accomplished something already, which doesn't seem like a big accomplishment. But then, don't go back into that bedroom. I turn my light off in there. I close the door. Bed is done. Like, home is done. And we are moving through our day, right? So come up with some routines is really the most important, and figure out how much time you need for yourself, and then how much time you need for good rest.
Tell me a little bit about your signature FOJ 28-day challenge.
Oh God, that came from, it was a funny time. Well, I started doing all the health stuff, which really more from a touching moment of my father unfortunately passed away, but he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And I really just didn't understand this whole mind-body connection piece. It wasn't that he was so unhealthy or healthy, but it was just something I just didn't know enough about. I know my grandmother, his mother, had it as well, but I was not around for it. I was in California. That was happening here. So I took that journey because I became his caregiver, and I needed to figure that out. But I also, once again, to the last question, how to figure out, how do I stay healthy, sane, find a balance when I can't really leave my house that much. I had to give up my company, or give up a lot of my clients, because I couldn't travel anymore. And how do I make money, right? So I had to figure out, how am I going to, I wasn't going to make millions of dollars. I wasn't going to make what I made as a consultant, but I needed to find an avenue to make some money. So a friend of mine actually said, oh, you should you go to the gym every day, turn that into money. Like, get certified and all this. My high school buddy and I did Shape Up NYC, which is a free program for those of you in New York. When we're back up and running, they have free classes of anything that you would see at an Equinox gym, taught in community centers, churches, after school programs for free, with crazy people like me, any New Yorker who wanted to be trained. Not any, they select you too, but you get trained to teach. And after that, I went and got certified. And so part of fitness, I think that people get wrong, is fitness can't make you as fit as what you eat. So your nutrition and what goes in your body is 10,000 times more important than how many push-ups you can do and how many jumping jacks and all of that. And so it's the idea that I knew I needed both pieces. So I went on, what I laughed about is I went on a whole, months. I was just trying every shake, every protein shake, anything that was out there. Cause I'm like, something's going to work. So I try something for a month because they said, oh, in 20 days, you'll do this. In 5 days, you can do that, right? In 25 days, in 21 days, in 3 months, right? And I was like, okay. So I felt like if you were really serious, you can really make a difference and a change in your body, mindset, and all of that in about 21 days, as they say. And it takes 21 days to create habit, 7 days to break it. So that's where the 28 came from.
Interesting.
Because I felt like you needed 7 days to start preparing, right? Get rid of that ice cream in your refrigerator, have that last beverage you're going to have, because all of that. I also don't believe in any of these just juice cleanses or just bub. I believe in food. As I said earlier, you must eat. But I definitely went through everything. Like, even the guy I was dating at the time when I was doing this was like, do you eat? And I was like, I'm going to eat. Believe me, we're going to eat, but not right now. I'm going to do this. So between shakes and specialty meals and Sakara and everybody has something that's good, but it was never in one thing. So you know, my thing was to present different types of stuff based, one, on socioeconomics, right? What could someone afford? Two, how much time, right? Because most people that I work with are not your biggest loser. Like I haven't dealt with someone who's really obese. It's really someone who really needs, they think they need to lose 50 pounds. They probably need to lose 10 to 15, right? But in their mind, they see themselves as the obese person, and all of that, right? So someone who's motivated, trying to really push that forward. So I knew that I could have you for a month.
Got
right?
it.
28 days is like a month. So the first 7 days is really that mindset of getting ready, usually let you choose some form of a detox, because I think that's important. You're starting to slow down what's going in and out of your body and getting it prepared. There's different ones. So I'm always like, you can get this one. You can get, I got whatever you need. You need all organic, got that. You need blah, blah, blah. You need gluten-free. You need, so figuring that out, and then figuring out a plan that works for you, but still never not eating.
Right.
Maybe a shake and a meal and a shake, because you're serious and you're about to go to your reunion. Like, it's usually someone who has a goal, a quick goal, but then I'm like, you really need to do it for at least 90 days and then see how that goes, and pick and choose out of what's going on, what's going to work for you.
That's
and there's,
helpful.
you know, so it's part food, part pills, part shakes, part like vitamins. When I say pills, not pills, but you know, things that are going to, I'm not a pill popper in that sense, but I really believe that there's always a solution. And for some people, it's just usually comes down to vitamins. Like having a multivitamin can change your whole world, because all those cravings and the things that lead you to overeating and weight gain from food, and is the regular, like, because your body is signaling that you need something because you haven't gotten that nutritionally in your body. And usually just a vitamin has changed people's lives. So I take a daily packet every day that I think keeps me pretty much on track. And then the fitness piece is just to augment and allow you to have a little bit more leeway in what you eat, a little bit more calories, because that will burn some stuff that if you didn't work out, you wouldn't have. Right. So it's just giving, like, so, you know, to restrict yourself to this. And then if you work out, you can go here. But if you stay here, you'll definitely see the difference long.
Yeah. I mean, they say that weight management is 80% nutrition and 20% physical. So obviously nutrition is key. Are there any apps that you would recommend to anybody on the line? Maybe nutrition apps or fitness apps? My
favorite fitness app, still, no one's beaten it, is still MyFitnessPal.
Oh, yes.
For those of you, I'm not a Fitbit person. They got rid of my Nike Fuel Band and sold their technology, keyword technology, to Apple. But Apple didn't do anything with it with the watch. But with Fitbit, it does connect. The reason why I like it is it tracks everything you do, from sleep to amount of water you drink. And they had the biggest listing, have the largest, like, longest list of even the worst food, stuff that I don't even eat, like McDonald's, and, you know, 20 different ways of Indian, like, you know, I always go for the highest calorie. So if you're eating a samosa and there's one that's 250 calories and one that's 500 calories, I choose the one that's to kind of, I'd rather err to the heavier side of what I'm eating. So it really tracks well. You start at, you know, you enter all your data, what you weigh, and they give you some hints of some things that you could do exercise-wise as well for that. I like Calm for some meditation stuff and just kind of mindfulness. And there's probably a few others that I keep on my app, but I really try to just I do Transcendental Meditation. Which is not where you're forgetting and blocking everything out. You know the crazy that's going on. So we say it's kind of like at the top of the ocean, there's all that crashing. So if you're at the top, anything that's giving you anxiety or a problem, you know, and you're in it. And you kind of want to be like that little character in that Disney, you know, little crab that's at the bottom under the sea. So you want to, like, go below the craziness. But you know it's happening. So I can meditate on doing Transcendental Meditation on the subway to work. It's not about a long period of time, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, but where you just kind of take a moment of all those things. Your mom called, your kids are this, the dog was barking. and it's all here in the crashing. But if you can just get below it, and you're like, my mom's still going to be crazy, my kids are still going to bother me, my boss is going to say something, but I'm going to be prepared, right? Because I'm okay with that. I know it's coming, and just kind of, so I think, you know, you have to just find some of the things, try a couple of apps. If it doesn't work, I mean, I really do like Equinox is my gym, and they have a great app that has enough of nutrition, some workouts. You know, I like the multi-sectional apps that aren't just one thing, because today you might need a meditation, tomorrow I might need a kickboxing class, and I need to be able to flow freely.
What type of fitness activities do you think are good to do while COVID-19 is going on right now?
For those of you that probably might feel a little bit less likely to go outside and outdoors, or where it's become a problem, or you know that you might not have as much chance, like I live in an apartment building, so I'm high up from the ground. People have a home and a backyard. I think the best thing is walking for so many things. You know, for those of you that do have a tracker or whatever, you know, doing those 10,000 steps while you're still on the phone, or you know, you can still walk like you would in your office, instead of sitting all day. Just the sedentary stuff is really what's going to catch up. It's joint wise, it's just telling your body that you're shut down. So movement is important. Stretching.
What about once it's over as well too?
No, I still think walking is one of the best things. You know, right now I would normally go to the park and go for a run. But, you know, in New York, at least, you guys, we are still supposed to wear a mask. And I get mad when I go just to walk to the park, because you can't really run with a mask, because you can't breathe enough. And I even have a special mask that my friend made for me that still is, you know, it's like, and you start, you know, so anything that kind of keeps your heart pumping is still going to be great. Stretching will always be one of the important things. It's what you mostly lose when you get older, is being able to stretch, and everyday activities to bend down. Think about the things like reaching up to the cabinet. And so being able to move your neck and move your body and pick things up. Strength also, you know, a lot of people went home, or, you know, don't have a gym. I don't have a gym in my house, but I have weights, and I do have equipment. You know, just even if it's 2 water bottles, I joke that, you know, I have a water bottle wherever I go, but like if you have 2, and they don't have to even be the same size, but if they are the same size and weight, or you bought 2 regular bottles and you've already finished, fill them up with sand or fill them up with more water. You know, different size bottles can take place of weights. I joke about that. The cans, your canned goods in your cabinet, there's nothing that you have to buy. The flour bag, the heavy bag of flour, that's you know, it's 5 pounds. You bought it. It's 5 pounds. It's 10 pounds. You know, we used to carry purses around with us, ladies, that weigh that. Your gym bag, your bag. I mean, I have this thing called the Silver Bullet, my MZ wallet bag, where I should probably be able to fit a person, you know, which had to be like, people would lift it up. I'm like, that's my second workout every day, because I carry it around. So any kind of movement, even in your house now, when you're cleaning your house, get into it, move that vacuum cleaner, get up high above that, you know, refrigerator, you know, these projects, things. If you do have kids, it's running around with them, playing Twister. It's bringing back some old things that could keep you new. Stuff that you did as a kid, wheelbarrow, carrying your kids' feet and let them walk around. And, you know, there's stuff like that. But then, you know, I would definitely take part in some of the free classes that you can find online. A lot of places are just offering them for free or for a limited time, but that limit might get extended, or you might like it and want to make that investment. So when you go back, you're ready to go back, and it's not like over and now you're starting from scratch. Like, definitely do something. You don't have to kill yourself.
Yeah.
You know, even if, like, whatever you do, it's a 20-minute class or 10 exercises every day. You know, choose something that's going to use your whole body. Some upper body and lower body are just where your larger muscles are. You know, so just do something.
It sounds awesome. So we're almost at the top of the hour, and I want to be respectful of your time, Jodi. Those on the line, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to enter them in the chat, and we'll just take a look at some of your questions and get them answered for you. And while we're waiting on that, Jodi, if you could talk to your younger self, what would you say to her? What advice would you give to her?
What advice? I think for me, I think now, I think I would tell my younger self to really look at why I was born. A lot of what I do in diversity and inclusion comes from my birth, of who I am, of living in two worlds, right? Being biracial, being bi-coastal, and my bis kind of stop there. Definitely ally, but the idea of trying to be this culture connector, trying to be, but also trying to tell my younger self that not everyone is going to get it, that I'm enough, that I am who I am. People can guess, people can push me, will push you to limits, but to just stay in my lane. I think often we try to please or go to places that will please others versus ourselves. And that don't question the path. Like, you know, so many times they're like, but you could be a lawyer. I'm like, yeah, I could. Like stuff that made sense to other people so that they could understand me better. Or I just don't do everything that everyone else does. You know, how many Black girls do gymnastics and horseback riding and ice skating? And, you know, and I'm like, I don't know, me. I mean, I wasn't counting on anyone else. I was like, so to really be okay with who I am, with like, so to tell my younger self to, you know, Jodi, be okay with who you are. And as long as you're okay, which I am now, and I think I have been, to really hone in on that and stay as authentic as you can. Because if you can't be authentic to yourself where you are, then you need to change where you are, not who you are, right? And I can't change other people. And I don't particularly want to change myself. Right. I can adapt when it's important. There's things, right? We all have rules, right? I dressed up today because I should. You know, we do things that make sense, right? But that doesn't compromise who I am, and I'm not giving up myself. I like my dress. I just haven't had a reason to wear one like this in a few days, right? Or a few weeks or a month and some change. But it's just the idea that you need to be authentically you, no matter what people box and circle or square, or whatever they want to put you in. If you're outside of the box, you're outside of the box. You don't get that joke because it's kind of doesn't really resonate with you. It's okay. So, but I do think it's what led me to what I do today and why that's so important to really accept yourself.
Thank you. Well, I don't see any additional questions in the chat. I'm just going to check one more time. Yeah, no. But Jodi, thank you so much for being here today.
No, thank you for having me.
And thank you so much. And on behalf of the Metro New York chapter of the National Black MBA Association, my name is Alicia Suggs. I am the Director of University and Alumni Relations. And I just want to say thank you guys for joining us today and have a great afternoon.
You too. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And also just to add as well, any career opportunities, please visit dtcc.com/ and I'm going to defer to you, Jodi, on the
dtcc.com/careers. So, or you can just go to dtcc.com and go to our careers page, but altogether it will lead you to the same place. And hopefully I will see you there too.
Thank you.